The story begins on a dark and stormy day near a somber mansion. Akira, the silent assassin, confronts another assassin who is also after his intended target. Feeling at a disadvantage, the other assassin refuses to surrender and pulls out a hidden weapon from his clothing. He lunges forward and throws the blades at Akira, who dodges them with almost ghostly movements. Then, the enemy charges with a sword, and they both exchange quick and precise blows. In the midst of the confrontation, Akira disarms the opponent, causing their sword to fly through the air. But the man pulls out more daggers and continues his attack. Akira skillfully dodges every single throw until his adversary pulls out their last secret weapon. To his surprise, Akira disappears before his eyes and then reappears behind him. The assassin attempts to find an opening, but Akira expertly blocks all blows and forces him downwards. He attempts to counterattack with a kick using a bladed shoe, but Akira anticipates the movement, injures his arm, and shatters his leg, bringing him to the ground. Having no alternative, the opponent accepts defeat, and his own sword drops on him, bringing the fight to an end. Subsequently, the silent assassin stealthily infiltrates the somber mansion and proceeds to observe the sleeping man. He hesitates for a moment but raises his sword, determined to fulfill his mission. Before all of this, however, Akira was merely an ordinary student in Japan. During his school days, some girls invite his friend Tsukasa to have lunch with them, but he turns them down, stating he has student council duties. The girls are impressed by his dedication as president, admiring his commitment. At another table, some students are expressing their gratitude to a girl named Shiori for assisting them with something. Meanwhile, Akira is engrossed in reading novels on his phone when a friend approaches him for a chat. The guy asks if he likes Ice Sky, but Akira coldly replies that he'll take anything if it's free. His friend nods and takes his leave, requesting that he recommend more complimentary stories if he encounters any. As he leaves, several curious girls start to comment on who he was just talking to. While having lunch, Akira himself is surprised that someone would even speak to him, as he is practically invisible at school. All of a sudden, his phone begins to glitch, and a strange darkness emerges on the classroom ceiling. The shadow then morphs into a magic circle that spreads out beneath the students' feet. Everyone panics and freaks out as the magic circle teleports them to a huge castle. Confused, they attempt to determine their whereabouts until a priest materializes and declares that the king awaits their presence. Once the man departs, the students see a king and princess before them, and they begin to wonder who exactly they could be. The king explains he summoned them from another planet to the world of Morgan. He reveals they are in the Redes Empire, on the human continent, which is currently being invaded by demons. The king declares that as warriors from another world, they have the power to defeat the demon lord, and they all get excited about the idea of a great journey. However, the priest informs them that only one of them can be the legendary hero and requests them to test their abilities. A boy places his hand on a magic sphere, but finds out he isn't the chosen one. The priest reassures him, saying that even so, he will still be a powerful soldier. Subsequently, a girl named Yuki finds out she possesses the abilities of a dispersion mage, and Tomoya, in turn, discovers he is a knight. After Shiori discovers she's a healer, the priest explains that everyone can see their status even without needing to touch the sphere. The students begin to assess their abilities, and Nanis inquires of Akira what his are. He reveals he's an assassin, but becomes confused when he sees his stats are absurdly high. Immediately after, Tsukasa places his hand on the sphere, revealing his heroic potential, receiving the priest's commendation and the applause of all his fellow students. Akira, however, is puzzled by how Tsukasa could be hailed as a hero despite having such meager stats, especially when Akira's own are so much greater. When Nanis presses him to reveal his own stats, Akira remains quiet, distrustful of the king and the narrative concerning the demons. He makes the choice to keep his powerful class a secret and casts a spell to conceal his presence. Nanis, noticing he's vanished, thinks he just left and decides to leave him alone. Once everyone completes their tests, the priest informs them that he will prepare special equipment and instructs them to rest in their rooms. Relieved that he wasn't discovered, Akira follows the other students without being noticed. As he walks along, he spots a camera in the hallway, which makes him realize the king is indeed monitoring the students, thus confirming his deep suspicions. What Akira doesn't realize is that a knight is watching him from the shadows. Later that night, he finds an abandoned warehouse and decides to sleep there. After he has rested, he chooses to explore the castle, seeking information, and gazes at the city's peculiar landscape. He is amazed to realize that he is truly in another world. Leaping between the towers, he discovers his powers are superhuman. Then, he hears voices in a nearby room and conceals himself to eavesdrop. He listens to the princess telling the king that the students are just naive children with special classes. The king, full of confidence, commands her to initiate the plan, and she then exits the room. Hidden, Akira watches the king, thinking to himself that he could easily eliminate him. The king feels a shiver down his spine, but upon turning, he sees no one and returns to his duties. The following day, Akira eats his lunch in peace, yet he continues to maintain his inconspicuous presence. Akira contemplates whether he should inform the other students about the king's schemes, yet he concludes that no one would give credence to his words regardless. At a nearby table, Tsukasa rises and informs everyone that the king has bestowed a great favor upon them by summoning and granting them powerful abilities. He declares that they must unite and repay the king by defeating the demons. Everyone enthusiastically agrees to support their hero, while Akira realizes they've all been tricked by the king's fabricated story. Following lunch, Saran, the commander of the Night Guard, brings together the heroes for training, boasting that he is the country's last line of defense. His partner, Gilles, reproaches him, reminding him to conduct himself with humility. Saran then informs them that they will undergo special training for 1 month before departing to a labyrinth to confront monsters. Aware that the students lack any prior combat experience, he attempts to reassure them by stating that he will assist them in their training. While the others get excited, Akira hangs back in the shadows, suspicious of the knight's true intentions. Deciding to investigate further, Akira slips away as Saran leaves the students in Gilles' care. As he approaches the fountain, Akira is surprised to hear Saran call out to him, believing his concealment spell had ended. But Saran calmly explains that the spell is in fact still active. He can only perceive him because he possesses mystical eyes, which are capable of detecting body heat. Suspicious, Akira puts his hand on his knife hilt, but Saran assures him he won't report him. Even though the knight serves the king, Akira hesitates, uncertain whether to place his trust in him. Saran then asks him to keep their meeting a secret and promises to help, causing Akira to finally lower his guard. The two sit down, and Akira says he wants to read the king's archives to better understand this world. Saran asks about his concealment skill level, and Akira responds that it's at maximum, but confesses that all his other skills are still at level 1, and he doesn't know how to enhance them. Surprised, Saran smiles and offers to train him, explaining that the royal archives don't contain anything truly useful. Akira is excited by the idea of getting stronger and exploring this new world, but he still longs to return to his family. Saran agrees with this, but counsels him to amplify his power until he discovers a path back to his homeland. Akira experiences a sense of guilt for receiving extensive assistance without offering anything back. So, the knight suggests he can pay him back by telling stories about planet Earth. Akira smiles, shakes his hand, and formally introduces himself as a sign of respect. During his training, Akira finds out that, in addition to humans and demons, elves and beastmen also exist in that world. Under Saran's rigorous mentorship, he undergoes strenuous exercises and discovers that class levels advance solely by conquering monsters, while skill levels improve through individual practice. As the days go by, Saran becomes fascinated by the stories about Earth and its technology, finding it all both incredible and mundane. Akira, for his part, begins to yearn for his former world. Later, Saran is in conversation with Gilles, who questions why he dedicates so much of his time to Akira. The knight responds that the boy's stories are simply too good to pass up, and Gilles also expresses curiosity. When Saran reveals that Akira is actually the true hero, with an ultimate concealment ability, Gilles is utterly stunned, as only the very first legendary hero of their world possessed such a skill. Soon after, Akira walks into the room and gives Saran a book he retrieved from the king's private collection. He explains that its content is quite troubling, and Saran confirms this, stating the volume describes a plan to dethrone the king. Akira subsequently uncovers that Saran himself authored the book, cleverly disguising it as nothing more than a plain cookbook. The knight reveals that the king is a cruel man who wants to control the world for his own gain. Akira remembers the summoning program and reflects in silence. Saran explains that many royal knights have their own issues with the king and plan to remove him from power without resorting to violence. Impressed, Akira comments that, as an assassin, he could easily eliminate the king without being noticed, but confesses he hesitated to do so on the first day. Saran understands him and says that having an assassin class doesn't force him to kill. Akira agrees, stating that he couldn't stand for his family to learn that he had become an assassin. The knight commends him for his prudence, expressing that he trusts him precisely because he displayed wisdom and discernment by not blindly accepting the king's words. To Saran, this indicates that Akira is someone capable of handling his own problems and isn't easily deceived or misled. The boy falls silent for a moment, and in a quiet voice, he reveals that he never received much attention when he was a child. Saran is surprised by the confession, and Akira adds that he is the only person who has ever praised him so much in his entire life. Smiling, Saran asks Akira if he would be willing to assist him in peacefully dethroning the king as a means of returning the recognition he had been given. Akira replies that he will consider the matter and then exits the room. After a full month of training, Saran announces to the students that the group will explore the great labyrinth of Kanina. A crowd gathers to bid farewell to the heroes, and Akira is quite surprised by all the attention they are receiving. As he watches the crowd, he notices a girl watching from a distance and approaches to ask what she's doing there. The girl, visibly annoyed, states that her people had made immense sacrifices to summon these heroes, and he ought not to behave as though utterly clueless. Confused, Akira explains that he isn't aware of the specifics, so she responds that they will reunite once he uncovers the truth. Soon after, the heroes enter the labyrinth and begin an intense battle against monsters. One of the students inadvertently activates a trap which then attracts giant ogres. Akira eliminates one of them and asks Saran if they should retreat. The knight agrees, saying he will clear a path for the students. Saran then unleashes a powerful divine sword magic, destroying all the monsters ahead. However, as the group passes through the gate, they find even more creatures blocking the exit. Tsukasa then recalls a smoke bomb that the princess had provided for emergencies, and he decides to deploy it. The explosion takes out the smaller monsters, but out of the smoke emerges a gigantic minotaur, far more powerful than any of the ones before it. When Giles enters the room with the other knights and spots the monster, he is astonished that such a formidable creature appears on such a low level. Akira pushes forward to launch an attack, sidestepping the minotaur's blow and scaling its body. He attempts to strike the foe, but the hardened hide of the beast causes his blade to shatter into fragments. In shock, Akira dodges another attack and falls back to Tsukasa, who is exhausted and unable to fight. Feeling guilty, the hero admits he cannot face the monster, but Akira encourages him, telling him that he needs to put his trust in his companions. He reminds him that they were all trained to fight, but Tsukasa starts to panic, convinced he's failed as a hero. Akira notices something strange and asks the dispelling mage to examine Tsukasa. The girl then steps forward and casts a powerful spell, which uncovers and lifts a demonic curse that had been responsible for his despair. With the hero now recovered, Akira positions himself next to Saran and asks if he may utilize a particular technique. Saran nods and summons a bolt of lightning that stuns the minotaur, astounding the astonished students. Seizing the opportunity, Akira moves like a shadow and stealthily appears behind the monster, preparing to unleash his ultimate dark magic, and so, that brings us to the end of episode 1. Akira then utilizes his power, which is shadow magic, to defeat a giant monster. He then drags the creature underground, and the battle concludes with his victory. Afterwards, Saran approaches and praises his effort, acknowledging his exhaustion but noting he did exceptionally well. He thanks Akira for his help, saying that everyone survived because of him. Akira responds that it was actually Saran who aided him in controlling his magic when it nearly spiraled out of control while he was training. Saran mentions he had never before heard of an additional shadow magic ability, an extremely strong power, yet one that is quite difficult to control and is highly draining on the user. Because of that, he wants him to only use it in truly necessary situations. Despite this, Saran reveals he brought something important for Akira, a sword called a katana, forged by the first hero. Akira is surprised he gave him the weapon instead of the current hero. Saran explains that the current hero already possesses his own sacred sword, and furthermore, the king would surely notice if he were to carry such a unique weapon. Akira then asks why that's an issue, and Saran confesses he stole the sword from the royal arsenal. Even so, Akira accepts the gift and thanks him, asking for the blade's name. Saran explains the name is inscribed near the hilt, though he doesn't know its meaning. When Akira inspects the blade, he finds the words Yato no Kami inscribed, signifying the Heavenly Knight's sword. He also discovers a message left by the former owner, expressing hope that the sword would find its destined successor and offer guidance in times of affliction. Akira is thrilled by the thought of meeting this legendary warrior. Saran mentions he wished he could have met the hero as well, but the curse afflicting the hero is far too powerful for any hero to intervene and break it. He admits he knows who is behind it, but he's powerless to do anything. The scene shifts to the princess, who is performing a mysterious ritual. Akira suddenly appears and shatters the crystal in front of her, leaving her in shock. She demands to know his identity, and he replies that his action serves to remove the curse afflicting the hero. The princess, quite annoyed, wants to know how he got into her chambers without her permission. Akira retorts that ladies shouldn't use curses to control others, and he calls her a witch. He questions her motives, and she coldly replies that she does everything for his majesty. Akira insists on knowing why she blindly follows the king's orders, but she repeats the same phrase, as if she were a puppet without her own will. Later, Akira returns to Saran, who asks if he revealed himself to the princess. Akira admits he did, because he wanted to understand her reason, but he realized she was no longer in control of herself, just a puppet in the king's hands. After their conversation, Saran tells him to get some rest, but warns him not to sleep in the castle. He explains the princess will curse everyone there except the hero. Since she knows nothing about Akira, she cannot harm him directly, but she will certainly try to assassinate him. Akira, understanding the danger, asks if Saran will scold him for exposing himself. Saran smiles and says that's part of youthful impulsiveness, and it falls upon adults to rectify such errors. Akira is happy, and says he wishes there were more adults like him in his world. Saran in jest asks Akira to take him along when he returns to his home world, as he would like to explore it. The following morning, Akira awakens with a peculiar sensation and approaches the castle to investigate further. There, Sakasa finds him, and quite surprised inquires about his whereabouts, assuming the curse had been broken. Akira replies that he was just sleeping and asks what happened. Sakasa sadly informs him that Commander Saran has been killed. Desperate, Akira runs to his friend's body and cries for him. One of the apprentices says the dagger used in the assassination was Akira's, accusing him of being the main suspect for constantly disappearing. The soldiers accuse him of murder, but Sakasa tries to calm them down, arguing that they cannot condemn him just based on such coincidences. At that very moment, the king appears and formally accuses him of having committed a great sin by slaying the knight commander, proclaiming that he must now face both justice and death. Before they can capture him, Akira uses his invisibility magic and disappears before everyone's eyes, leaving them astonished. He flees and meets Gil, who reveals the commander was killed by the king's personal assassins, known as the Night Crows, led by Gerbanalele, and that Akira himself is also their target. Gil tells him that Saran left some supplies in his room and strongly advises him to flee right away. Akira quickly takes the items and makes his escape. Meanwhile, the king talks with the princess, expressing his doubt that Saran could have died so easily, especially considering he had placed a curse on everyone but the hero. The princess responds that they merely need a pretext to declare war on the east, but the king will have to use certain children as pawns, and that Akira will shortly perish in some trench. The king then orders her to dispatch the Night Crows to hunt him down, and she complies. The following morning, Akira discovers and reads a message left by Saran. Within the message, the commander advises that if Akira ever needs to conceal himself, the optimal location would be within the dungeons of Sarab. However, he also cautions that the available water supply there is quite restricted. He also adds that if Akira wants to raise his class level, the secret lies within those very dungeons. The deeper Akira ventures, the more formidable his enemies become. Akira remembered asking in a past conversation why these areas remained unexplored. Saran had clarified that such places were exceedingly perilous, given that concealing one's presence proved futile against creatures possessing heightened olfactory and auditory senses. However, if Akira were to enhance his assassination skill, he would be able to conceal his scent, mask his footsteps, and even obscure his thermal signature. With resolve, Akira plunges into one of the dungeons, vanquishing countless monsters. He then recalls his commander's earlier advice. When his class level reaches 100, he will get a unique ability that will help him succeed in this world, and so, Akira heads toward the Canton Labyrinth. Akira keeps on with his journey, taking on the labyrinth bosses, and in the middle of a fight, he finds the remaining message Commander Saran left for him. The message revealed that upon entering the boss chamber, he would be unable to exit until either he or the boss was deceased. Filled with resolve, Akira commences his battle with the gigantic monster. He blocks many colossal attacks, yet he ends up being struck in the back. Even injured, he shouts that he won't die there, that he needs to keep fighting. Gathering all his strength, Akira channels his shadow magic and with a devastating blow, shatters the monster, securing victory in the fight. Yet, he is left severely injured, needing to resort to his emergency magic reserve to survive. Meanwhile, at the palace, a young man informs Tsukasa that they've received orders to proceed immediately to the Demon King sector, even though they're still reeling from Commander Saran's death. Tsukasa ponders this, understanding that all of this must be connected to the princess's curse, as previously mentioned by Vice Commander Gil. He makes up his mind to go by himself, but his friends insist on joining him. However, Tsukasa reminds them that the king himself ordered them to fight the Demon King. A girl within the group expresses her belief that everyone there is safe from the curse, as she herself is a magic nullifier, inherently resistant to such spells, and has recently developed the ability to discern when someone is under a curse. Asahina, another member, speculates that his actions might be connected, and as he tries to recall a confusing memory, he vividly remembers breaking crystals in an unfamiliar room with a sword, yet he cannot fully grasp the reason behind it. He states that manipulation is even more dangerous than a curse when it comes to controlling people, and regrets not being able to help Akira as he wished, explaining that he failed to support him, whether he was cursed or not. The story then shifts to a flashback, showing Asahina meeting Akira when he was working at a particular location. Akira reveals he avoids talking to others because he doesn't want anyone from school to know, especially his younger sister, who's a first year. Akira wakes from his dream and realizes he was remembering Asahina, wishing that he's doing well, along with his mother and Yui. When he gets up, he feels absolutely no pain and realizes that his statistics have increased drastically. He wonders why his life force is nearly complete even after sustaining broken ribs and being poisoned. He also notices that his shadow magic and additional ability have evolved 2 levels, becoming much easier to control. Without fully understanding what happened, he decides to just move on. While advancing through the labyrinth floors, Akira comes across a huge giant slime blocking his path. He destroys it with an explosive blow, and from inside the creature, a beautiful girl emerges. Seeing her, Akira thinks she's an elf with the most beautiful face he's ever seen. He decides to use a strange ability that gives him special eyes, allowing him to perceive the world differently. However, the power proves so intense that he nearly loses his vision, compelling him to immediately cease its use. He recognizes the danger of the technique and promises never to use it again. At that moment, the elf faints before him, but Akira realizes that she is still alive and severely wounded, with only 2% of her life remaining. When she awakens, she inquires about their location, and he clarifies they are currently on the 75th floor of the labyrinth. Before she can respond, she faints again, falling into his lap with a high fever. Akira then carries her to a safe shelter, attempting to treat her wounds. Later, when she wakes up, she finds Akira preparing tea and watches him in silence. He encourages her to drink it to warm up, as it's bitterly cold there. She admits that she is far too hungry to sleep. So he offers her some warm sustenance, which clearly brings her joy and makes her quite grateful. Akira tenderly cares for her, saying he's used to it since his mother was ill and he always nursed her. The girl looks around and notices an inscription on the wall, asking if he was the one who wrote it. Akira confirms this, stating that the number 69 represents his method of tracking his progress. He marks each floor he manages to reach. Confused, she states that he previously mentioned being on the 75th floor and questions why he descended. Akira clarifies that this location offers the closest water source and that he transported her here specifically to guarantee her well-being. Suspicious, she asks if he touched her body in an improper manner. Akira gets embarrassed, but he assures her he would never do that and asks her to rest. She smiles, revealing she is a member of the royal family and has never been treated with such kindness before. They both end up falling asleep. Later, the scene shows the two of them encountering an enormous troll. Akira, filled with concern, asks her why she continues to follow him. He points out that she has now recovered and therefore should go her own way. She replies with a smile that she's just going in the same direction as him. Soon after, they delve into a new section of the labyrinth and become paralyzed with terror when a gigantic dragon suddenly materializes and savagely assaults them. Akira tries to activate his presence-hiding ability, but it's useless because the dragon can track his magical energy. The monster lands a devastating blow on Akira, who retaliates by activating his mysterious power and manages to land a mortal blow. A beam of light emanates from the dragon's body, spreading its glow across the entire cavern. What could this signify? The episode ends at this moment, leaving the conclusion for the next chapter, promising to reveal the fate of Akira and the elf. The dragon then transforms into a huge blue cat, and neither Akira nor Amelia can grasp how that's even possible. Amelia then uses her Eye of the World ability and discovers that the cat is in fact a shapeshifter. That's precisely how it managed to transform into a dragon. Now everything falls into place for her, because a real dragon would have been far more resilient than that cat. Akira is impressed by the effortless way Amelia uses her ability and questions why he himself is not utilizing it. He recalls how his brain nearly split in half the last time he attempted to use it, and he thinks it's due to his current level still being too low to effectively control it. Amelia, however, believes the problem stems from Akira's rejection of the ability, which in turn prevents him from mastering it correctly. At that moment, the black cat awakens and begins to speak. He expresses his disappointment at being defeated by a mere human and an elf, even though he had only transformed into a dragon for his own amusement. Akira is shocked to hear the monster speak, and noticing his reaction, the cat feels offended. The cat scolds him, telling him not to compare him to low-level monsters who are driven solely by instinct. He explains that he is a creature of superior intellect created by the demon lord himself. Akira responds that it really makes no difference, as after that final blow, the cat will be too weak to continue fighting. The black cat says he doesn't mind dying, but claims he has a message to deliver to Akira first. He rises, emanating a threatening aura, and declares that the demon lord is expecting him at his castle, situated in the heart of the demonic continent amidst the volcanoes. This revelation leaves Akira quite suspicious, prompting him to inquire how the demon lord is aware of his presence and why he wishes for Akira to visit his castle. The cat replies that the demon lord's true nature is too vast for its comprehension, so it cannot disclose any more information. Then he lies on the ground and asks Akira to kill him, but he refuses. The cat insists that he stop pretending to be noble, stating that humans view all demons and monsters as their adversaries, thus it would be only natural for him to end its life. Akira disagrees, stating that his true adversary is the king, and he doesn't consider demons to be his natural enemies. Amelia then reminds him that the boss's chamber door will only open if the boss is vanquished, or if they themselves are slain by it. The cat then agrees with her, asking Akira if he intends to simply starve to death within these walls. He's curious why Akira refuses to kill him. The answer, though simple, proves quite surprising. Akira explains that he is fond of cats, and unlike typical monsters, this particular feline can communicate with him. Because of this, he is convinced there must be an alternative solution, a loophole, that would allow them to exit the room without having to resort to killing it. Amelia remembers something and confirms that there is in fact another way. Should Akira forge a pact with the Black Cat, accepting it as his familiar, it would cease to be recognized as a boss monster, and the exit would then become accessible. The Black Cat laughs at the suggestion, stating that only an experienced magic user with significant control over mana can perform the ritual, and Akira lacks that capability. Amelia disagrees, revealing that Akira has already surpassed the level needed to do it. She reminds the cat that Akira had previously detached his mana from his body to confuse it, an accomplishment only the very first hero in history was capable of. Amelia is convinced Akira can perform the ritual, but she admits to not knowing if he will be able to successfully complete it. Akira then asks what would happen if he failed, and the cat responds that one of them would perish, or in the worst case scenario, both would lose their lives. Akira accepts the risk, and the cat, completely baffled by his unwavering determination, lets him go ahead, remarking that it truly doesn't care if it dies. Annoyed by the cat's indifference, Akira states he will endeavor to make it grasp the worth of life at a later time. He then asks Amelia how to conduct the ritual, and she explains that the first step is to give the cat a new name. Akira decides to name it Night, drawing inspiration from its dark fur, which truly evokes the image of the night sky. Since the cat doesn't react, Akira proceeds to the next stage, which involves channeling his mana into the cat's paw. Amelia warns him that from this point forward, there will be no turning back. If he fails to control the cat, he could very well lose his life. Akira, however, maintains his confidence and proceeds to begin the process. As mana begins to flow into Night's paw, Akira is overcome by a powerful surge, feeling as if he's being engulfed. He then understands that he is experiencing the immense power held within the feline. Suddenly, he finds himself plummeting towards a city engulfed in flames. Horrified by the spectacle, Akira witnesses Night laying waste to the area, mercilessly killing those attempting to flee. Akira attempts to stop Night, but the cat retaliates with a surge of its shadowy energy, inflicting serious wounds upon him. Akira rises to his feet, and Night vehemently encourages him to kill him, asserting that it is the sole means of escaping that place alive. Even so, Akira hesitates, unable to attack the cat. Night attacks him once more, lashing out with claws imbued with dark power, and the injuries sustained in the dream world begin to manifest on his physical body. Compelled to take action, Akira hurls his dagger, yet Night effortlessly deflects it, then begins to concentrate even more of its energy to swiftly bring an end to the combat. Akira, rather than attacking, rushes towards him and allows himself to be impaled by the cat's claws. Night is astonished by this action and questions what Akira is attempting to do. Akira says he doesn't want to kill him and knows that Night doesn't want to kill anyone either. Night responds that despite his keen intellect, he remains a monstrous being, and his primal urge forces him to slay anyone who dares to cross his path. Akira senses Night's weariness from constant killing and assures him that he doesn't have to confront that primal urge by himself anymore. He gently takes his claws and promises to take care of him, assuring him that he will never again have to do something like that. Gradually, the dream world starts to disappear, and as Night begins to place his trust in Akira, his form changes into that of a typical-sized feline. He finds solace in Akira's embrace as the sun ascends in the dream world, reflecting the tranquility he now experiences with his new master. When Akira awakens, he realizes the pact ritual worked and touches Night to confirm it. A golden mark then appears on the back of his hand, and the red symbol on the cat's forehead turns golden as well. Amelia explains that this is the pact mark of a successful ritual, and now Akira's soul is linked to Night's. The cat then wakes up and comments that he is curious to see how far his new master will be able to go. Following this, he formally accepts him as his owner and pledges his eternal loyalty. Amelia introduces herself, and Knight replies that since she is his master's companion, she has his respect as well. At that moment, a magic circle materializes on the ground, indicating the boss's defeat. Even so, Akira seems distracted, lost in thought. He mentions he'd like to proceed to the next floor immediately, but Knight has been wounded. The cat then reassures him, stating that the door will remain open until they choose to use it, therefore there is absolutely no need to rush. He decides to rest and recuperate, and Amelia proposes they utilize this period to truly get acquainted. Knight agrees without hesitation, and Akira finds himself surprised by the swiftness of this shift in personality. Meanwhile, Soto and his group journey to a country established by a hero who, just like them, was also summoned from Earth. They are all left speechless when they realize the place bears a striking resemblance to historical Japan. Every building, every street, and each piece of clothing gives them a strange sense of nostalgia. They take a moment to relax before they discuss what they will do next. Soto states that their initial concern must be financial, as they are approximately 1 month from becoming completely penniless and without shelter. One of the guys proposes becoming adventurers, stating that it is the ideal occupation for individuals like themselves, to which Soto concurs. Then, he shifts his focus to gathering intelligence, suggesting they either locate an individual with experience in this world or seek out books containing valuable information. One of the boys sighs, expressing his hope that there's a book to teach them how to return to Earth. Soto, however, holds the belief that vanquishing the Demon Lord is the sole method by which they can go back. He presumes that only the king and princess possess the knowledge to send them back, and even though these individuals are corrupt and cruel, the group will nonetheless have to earn their trust by vanquishing the Demon Lord. He declares that as soon as they have sufficient resources and information, they'll set off for the demonic continent, but Asahi disagrees. He believes they should regroup with Akira before they leave for their mission. Some members of the group agree with Asahi, while others still consider him the murderer of Commander Sarin. The group begins to bicker until the girls intervene, requesting that Soto, as their designated leader, make the ultimate decision. He admits to agreeing with Asahi and believes that Akira is already more powerful than any of them, yet he doubts their ability to truly collaborate. He mentions that Akira tends to shy away from interacting with others, and despite having been classmates since kindergarten, Akira never really seemed to acknowledge his presence. The revelation truly surprises the group, and even Asahi concedes that Akira was never one to work well within a team. Soto then mentions that, according to legend, only the sacred sword wielded by the hero can defeat the Demon Lord. That's why he has to become strong enough to fulfill his duty. Even if they do find Akira, he believes the hero will only join them if they prove themselves worthy. So, he decides to stay in this country and train until Akira shows up again. Meanwhile, Amelia tells Akira and Knight about her past. She reveals she was exiled from her kingdom by her own sister, who sent soldiers to hunt her down and kill her. Trapped near a cliff's edge, Amelia employed her gravity magic to cast herself into the river below. Swept away by the current, she narrowly managed to evade capture. However, she was severely wounded and utterly exhausted, and a black slime seized the opportunity of her weakened state to engulf her entirely. When she finally came to her senses, she found herself deep within the dungeon, having just been rescued by Akira. Akira is quite touched upon hearing her story, yet Knight points out several inconsistencies. Slimes do not consume people, and even had one done so, Amelia would have been fully digested before any rescue could have been attempted. She confesses she cannot comprehend how she managed to survive, yet feels indebted to the slime for guiding her to Akira. He then advises her to return and attempt reconciliation with her sister, but Amelia has already lost all hope. She expresses that she wouldn't be able to confront her again, but Akira reassures her, affirming that, as family, everything is bound to turn out alright in the end. He mentions he too has an annoying and overly inquisitive sister, but he still loves her deeply. Amelia and Knight inquire if he wishes to go back to his world to reunite with her. Akira affirms, but states he must first fulfill another promise. He begins to speak of Saren, the man who taught him how to survive in that world, and his blood boils as he recalls Saren's death. Consumed by rage, he swears to kill the king and princess who ordered him to be assassinated. Akira's murderous intent causes both Amelia and Knight to tremble in fear. Amelia then shouts his name, snapping him out of his trance. When he finally calms down, they both disclose that they too knew Saren. He was a renowned cavalry commander. Akira senses the atmosphere has grown too tense, so, in an effort to lighten the mood, he pulls a glove from his pocket. Instinctively, Knight pounces to snatch it, guided by his quick feline reflexes, and the air once again fills with a momentary sense of lightness. Akira is happy to discover that the trick he used on the stray cats near his home also works on the monster cat. Amelia, intrigued, wants to give it a try as well. Soon after, Akira and Amelia started softly stroking Knight, appreciating the warmth and softness of his fur. Knight urges Akira to take things with greater seriousness, reminding him that their souls are intertwined, and should one of them die, the other will also perish. Akira already knows this, but he's simply delighted to have a cat as his familiar, given his lifelong fondness for felines. Once their playtime concludes, they opt to exit the dungeon. Akira then asks Knight to tell him where this teleportation circle is actually taking them, but the cat confesses he has no idea. He explains that only a select few demons still master the intricate art of forging magic circles. Akira then resolves to seek them out and compel them to serve him once he arrives at the demonic continent. All of a sudden, Amelia recalls a legend concerning light blue magic circles that take individuals to their heart's greatest desire. She explains that when multiple people enter the circle, it only reacts to one of their desires. Akira remarks that this could potentially lead to trouble, but Amelia reassures him that she'll gladly venture anywhere, provided she's by his side. Without further hesitation, Akira steps into the magic circle. He wonders if the magic circle could transport him back to his family, but he swiftly sets that thought aside, determined to achieve his vengeance first. The circle comes to life, and the entire group is then teleported to a forest where they can clearly see a gigantic tree. Amelia is utterly shocked as she recognizes the scenery, while Knight identifies the colossal tree as the World Tree, stating they are currently in the Elf Forest. Even though she's in disbelief that they ended up there, Amelia hears Akira say that it's a good place to be. Suddenly, an elf, concealed among the trees, fires an arrow directly at her. However, Akira perceives the danger just in time and shoves her, deftly diverting her from the imminent assault. He then dashes toward the archer, skillfully deflecting another arrow with his dagger and swiftly taking him down. Amelia identifies the archer as Liam. He states he hadn't anticipated finding the betrayer there while looking into the mysterious light, and he instructs her to flee if she desires to live. Akira, out of patience with his words, knocks him unconscious, yet he quickly realizes it was already too late. The group is now completely surrounded by the elves. Amelia's sister Kilika appears in front of the soldiers, personally leading them. She stares coldly at Amelia and declares that she will certainly die for daring to return to her homeland, and that's where the video concludes.